Yo, what's poppin', people? Welcome back to another episode of Key to the Streets. It's your boy, Mike Gomes. If you've been getting any value from the channel, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so that you see when these things come up. But let's get started. We're going to talk about COVID today. Could you believe it? We're literally almost in 2023 and we're still talking about COVID. It's crazy. So what's happening in real estate with COVID? Actually, to back up a little bit, COVID is going to keep impacting real estate for years to come, for years and years to come. It's going to be like a trickle effect. It's just going to keep happening. But what's happening right now is the people that signed up for the COVID forbearance are now realizing that their forbearance is up and they got to start paying their mortgage again. So to back up a little bit, what COVID forbearance is when people go to their mortgage lender and they say, hey, I have some COVID problems. I lost my job, or, maybe I was a contractor or something and jobs just slowed up or whatever. They have some sort of reason because of COVID, right? We'll say that they have some sort of reason because of COVID that they could not pay their mortgage. Okay. Now, a lot of people, like, the COVID forbearance really actually truly helped a lot of people that lost their jobs and everything like that. The forbearance is actually a really good thing. It's just the reason why I went like this is some people have taken advantage of it. I'm literally in the game seeing people take advantage of it all the time, and it is what it is. But so what happens is people will go to their mortgage lender and they'll say, hey, I want to suspend my payments for a certain amount of time. And the mortgage companies say, yeah, for sure. COVID's happening. I'm gonna suspend your payments for, let's just say, 6 months, right? Every mortgage lender is different and every situation is different. So depending on their situation, depends on how many months it gets extended or whatever. So they suspend the payments, which means they just don't have to pay for those months. So let's just say the payments are suspended for 6 months. They don't have to pay their mortgage for 6 months straight. And then once that 6 months comes up, they can either ask for another forbearance or do a couple things. They have like 3 different options in most cases, and that's what I'm going to go over on the whiteboard here, what these 3 different options are and how to do a deal with these 3 different options. So let's get into it. So we'll call this the COVID forbearance. I think that's how you spell it. COVID forbearance. So, like I said, this is essentially just a suspension of mortgage payments. Now, they typically won't add on any extra interest or anything like that for these payments. They're just like, hey, we're going to suspend your payments for 6 months straight to help you out for COVID. Okay. Now, one of 3 things happens once this forbearance is up. So at the end of 6 months, now the bank says, hey, time to start paying again. And one of 3 things can happen. Okay. So let's just say for these 6 months, these mortgage payments are $2,000 a month. That adds up to times 6. That adds up to about $12,000. So this mortgage has been suspended for $12,000 worth of mortgage payments. Okay. So one of 3 things can happen. The first thing, the mortgage company says, hey, we suspended your mortgage payments for 6 months, but that doesn't mean that you're off the hook for this 12 grand. You got to pay it. Okay. So one option you have is at the end of 6 months, you pay this 12 grand right up front and then continue making just your regular mortgage payments of the 2 grand. Okay. Your loan stays in place. None of the terms change or anything like that. So essentially the mortgage payments were suspended for 6 months and then you got to pay up what you owe for those 6 months and then everything goes back to normal. So you can do that. And then your loan is in good standing. This doesn't affect your credit or anything. This forbearance. This is like a, hey, I'm here to help you out. I'm not going to affect your credit or charge you anymore or anything like that. This is just solely here to help. That's why it's a good thing for a lot of cases. So the second thing that you can do is you could do something called a loan modification. Now, this loan modification process is fairly lengthy, what they're going to say is they're going to say, hey, you owe this $12,000. And let's just say the total payoff. Now we're just talking about sake of example, total payoff, including this 12 grand, let's just call it 200,000 bucks. So you owe, let's call it 188 on your mortgage plus the 12,000 that you owe for the forbearance, okay? Which would equal 200,000. So you owe us 200 grand. What we're going to do is, instead of saying that you got to pay this all up front, we're just going to create a new loan for you. So what would have happened, right, is your mortgage would have been 188, and you would have been making those mortgage payments of $2,000 every single month if you didn't do the forbearance. But now that you did the forbearance, these are kind of in back payments. Okay. So we got to figure out what to do with this. Why don't we add these two up and we just create a new loan? But this loan modification process is lengthy. You got to apply for this. Okay. And they look at some things. They look at your situation. They look at your finances. They look at your job history. They look at your credit. They look at a lot of different types of stuff. So you go through a whole entire application process, and then you got to make 3 payments. They're like 3 preliminary payments that you got to make in order for this loan modification to go through. And let's just say this loan modification goes through, you now have a new payment every single month. And if you got this loan maybe like 5 years ago, your interest rate was probably really good. That's why you have a decent payment of $2,000. But let's just say now, because the interest rates are up, you have a new loan, right? And the way the interest rates are now, maybe you have a payment of $2,500 a month. Your payment is different because your interest rate went up. Granted, they helped you out and tacked this $12,000 into a new loan. That way you don't have to pay $12,000 right away. But boom, now your payment is much more because the interest rates went up. Maybe your interest rate before on this loan was only maybe 2% or something because you got to get it at a good time, and interest rates now are like 7%. So kind of stinks if you have to go down that road. The third thing you could do is apply for an extension. Now this is the same thing. You got to apply. You hop on the phone with them, they'll ask you some questions, they go send it to their underwriters, and then it takes about 7 to 10 days to see if you get approved for this. So same thing with this. They pretty much just look at the situation. They look at the situation and see if, the loan was in good standing before you had the forbearance and all that type of stuff. They look at your whole entire situation that you've dealt with this loan with, right? And then what happens here is this 12,000 just gets tacked on to the back of the loan. Okay. So now let's just say you got a 30-year loan. Okay. You had a 30-year mortgage and you were in this maybe 15 years. Okay. So at the moment that you pulled out the forbearance, you were in it for 15 years, right? What they'll do is they'll just tack on 6 months to this 15 years. So now you owe us over the course of 15 and a half years, right? So once this extension gets approved, right? Let's just say you were in it for 15 years, which means you have 15 years left over. Okay. If you didn't do the forbearance, you would only have 15 years left over, right? But you filed for the extension. Now we got to tack on an extra 6 months. So now we're essentially going to give you the same terms and everything. We're just going to make the new loan, instead of 30 years, it's going to be 30 and a half. Okay. Which means you have 15 and a half more months left on your loan. So these are essentially the options you have with COVID forbearance. Now let's think about this, right? If you're working with a seller who's going through a situation where their forbearance is up and they're like, dang, I can no longer make my mortgage payments, I don't know what to do, you have a few different options. Let's just say the property doesn't really need too much work. Okay. And the seller is asking for a price that makes sense for a novation agreement. You could essentially just not even pay it and just do the novation agreement really quick and make sure that it gets done before anything hits their credit. Or you can just come up with this money right here, the $12,000, pay it, make the loan, in good standing, and just keep making the mortgage payments every single month, put a little love into the property, and then immediately list the property. You could do that. Okay. Well, let's just say the price doesn't make sense or whatever, right? The price doesn't make sense, and the novation would not work. You're like, hey, what's screaming right now if this doesn't happen? Sub 2 is screaming. So what you do is you have two different options. You could do the loan modification, get a new payment of $2,500 and take it down sub 2, and then put a renter in it. I don't think that would be a good option for the buyer, at least, because now this mortgage payment is more. The best option, if you're going to take this thing down sub 2, is applying for this extension. So here's what I would do. If I ran into this situation, I would say, hey, let's apply for this extension. So we're going to put a sub 2 agreement in place. Sub 2 agreement, right? And it's contingent upon this extension getting approved. And if it gets approved, great. Then I take down the property sub 2. I give you whatever cash that you need to leave, and I'll just take over this new loan of 30 and a half years. This is actually what we're doing right now on a deal that I'm working on. Here's what happened. Lady's going through forbearance. She had a forbearance taken up. Then what happened from there is she now is leaving out of state, and she's like, hey, forbearance is up. I don't know what to do now. I want to sell the property, but my total payoff doesn't really make sense to put on the market, and I'm leaving in a month. So I need to be paid like right now. I don't really have the time to list it. So what we did is, at first, before we got the total payoff amount, we thought that it was going to be a novation agreement. But then we realized after the total payoff amount, we got that from our attorneys, we realized that the novation agreement would not work anymore. So what we ended up doing is we were just like, hey, let's get this extension signed, or let's get this extension approved, and then let's just take the property down sub 2. And that's what we did. So this is how you get deals with COVID forbearance. If this video brought y'all any value, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you see these videos popping up. And I don't know if y'all seen yesterday's video, but I'm telling y'all, something's coming big. Something's coming big. And the first thing that's going to come is our Facebook community. So we're going to have a Facebook community where everybody can hang out, do deals together. I can give you guys advice like actively in there, right? That's coming out. If you want to get access to that Facebook community, please shoot me a DM on Instagram at @the Mike Gomes. I appreciate y'all. Let's go.